So what I'm going to do today is something I normally never do, which is basically just show off what I've got here for you guys, because some people are like, hey man, you've got a really good voice, but as of right now, kind of ignore it, a little scratchy, possibly had the China virus, I don't know. So anyway, here we go. I wanted to dive into it because people often ask me, they're like, hey man, what microphone do you got? You using a Shure or something? What are you using? Well, it's an ElectroVoice RE320, one of the rather, I guess you could say, better known microphones for broadcasting and radio station use and whatnot. Normally it's the RE20, which is the silver one, and the one I showed you in the beginning is the RE320, which is the black one. It's more of a, it's more tuned versus the other ones. The other ones are more boxier, kind of a little more mid-toned, when this one's more of a tune for a sort of like a V shape. Imagine a V curve for your vocals. It's got more of a bassy end, and then it's sort of tuned on the highs just enough so it sounds almost like a condenser. It's pretty good. I would recommend it on everything, but however, there is one thing I am doing differently that others typically don't. Most people typically run it through the average, let's just say your normal Focusrite interface. That's the most common everyone buys. And because it's the most affordable, that's actually pretty good with its specs. You know, there is cheaper, but I normally don't recommend them because of their microphone preamps, and their headphone preamps are kind of crap. So shout out to Focusrite for doing that one. But what I'm running mine through is a DBX vocal processor. It's the DBX 286. And what I run that through is I run my mic through the interface straight into the computer's recording input, which is, in my case, I'm using the onboard Realtek, and I have no problems with it. So the microphone goes straight to the 286S preamp, and then I have it from there. I have a couple things tuned. We can tune the bass. It's got a de-esser, and if you don't know what a de-esser is, in case you have hard S's, you can tune those to be tuned out of your voice and whatnot. It's also got an expander gate, and which is basically a noise suppression. In my case, I don't have it set up entirely, so you'll still hear like a little bit of background noise. I'm going to be quiet for a minute. So you can still hear a little bit of the background and whatnot. Most people in their case would use NVIDIA noise suppression or AMD noise suppression, or if you're using neither one of those, RN noise is a common one to use, which uses a lot of CPU though. So, but the whole point of this video is, anyway, I'm going to show the differences. Both microphones that I showed off. The other one was a Focusrite. FiFine. This model Focusrite is pretty cheap, 50 bucks typically. And it is just like this one, a broadcast microphone, dynamic. You can use it via USB, or if you look closely, XLR. It's got both. Doesn't require 48 volt phantom, so you don't have to worry about that. A typical interface would do of any sort if you wanted to use XLR with it, like mine. Mine fortunately has 48 volt though, which I do not use currently. But if you do get a vocal processor amp, you'll be good to go to tune it however you want it to sound and whatnot without having to do anything digitally on your own computer using VSTs and whatnot. So the 286S though, I'll show you the differences with this mic. I can turn off the processing effects and then turn them back on, so you hear the differences of what this interface is actually capable of doing. So let's bypass all the processes here. Let's hear this mic raw. Now keep in mind, I do have the gain set pretty high, so some things might sound a little rough. So here we go. Let's bypass all the settings I have. So what you're hearing now is the microphone without the de-esser, without the EQ tune and everything else that's built into the microphone processor. Why can't I speak? Ignore me. Like I said, I'm still getting over a sickness and I can't quite put words together. And there we go. Turn the effects back on, and this is what you're getting with this mic. So this one's pretty versatile in what you can do with it though. You can clearly make great videos with it, and I've actually used it for recording multiple songs and messing around with skits and all kinds of different things. And people often compare it to your typical Shure SM7B. They're like, hey man, it sounds like you've got one of those. No, ElectroVoice RE320. So what we're gonna do now, swap over to the other mic. But before I do, the RE320 typically runs you around $199, but I've seen it places $300 and whatnot. It just depends where you go. I would go to Sweetwater, American Musical, stuff like that. Get it cheap, dirt cheap, really good, worth the money. But let's switch over to the FiFine and you can hear what it sounds like. All right, I'm not going to be hooking this one up to my little stand here, and I can't do a side by side because I don't have two XLR cables. But what you're hearing now is the FiFine connected with the same vocal processor, the DBX286S, and the settings that I have tuned for my RE320. These settings don't actually apply to this microphone. They do sound kind of, you know, but let's hear this one raw without any processing. I've not really messed with this one much, so I don't really know what it's going to sound like in the end. So while I'm editing this, it's probably going to be pretty bad, and I'm going to be like, but whatever. So now we just bypassed all the effects, and this is what this microphone sounds like raw, straight out of the box. If you plug it in, I haven't tested the USB. You're not going to be hearing the USB version, unfortunately. So, but I would imagine the USB sounds pretty similar to what you're hearing now. I'm not really sure. It could be less noisier, but who knows? But this microphone can be had around, say, I think it's $50 now. It was like around 80 or so new. The model number is a so here's the thing. I couldn't find the exact model number of this one because ironically it's nowhere, even though it's really popular. But apparently it's called a FiFine Ampligame. I will type that out right here. Type, smack. There you go. Look at it on the screen. There's apparently two versions of this one, the square one and the round one. I think they're both the same. Both. What am I, Canadian? They're both the same. So yeah, there you go. Ampligame. It's a continuation of, I believe, there's a KM series. I'm not sure which model it is, but it's a typical black one that has a RGB ring on top of it. This one is a continuation of that, just basically a different body. It is a little more airier and it does sound pretty decent, but if you want some good quality and you don't want to spend as much on a Shure or something like that, I mean, come on, you're not gonna beat it. So, you know, let me turn on the processing again. Might have to back off of it a little bit because I think this one does have a little bit of distortion with my settings. But for the price, you're not going to beat it. It's new around $98 that I last checked. So I was right. It was around 80 to 90 new. You can typically find it 40, 50 bucks, eBay, anything like that. And so if you want to save money, this is your budget mic. So let's switch back over to the good one. There we are. Right back to my sweet joy, my lovely, joyful RE320. Now this one, like I said, if you got a little bit more money to spend, get it. Just do it. You don't need a Shure. You don't need to follow the trends. Just get what you can afford, you know? You can always make anything just sound about as good, if not better, if you know what you're doing.